all of us can choose by our actions to rise above the rancor and find common ground and shared purpose.
And for analysis on these events, we will go to criminal defense attorney Vikas Bajaj over at San Diego. Vikas, thank you so much for joining us. First, I want to talk about the impeachment. The House has just voted to impeach. It goes now to the Senate to try the case. Not sure that they'll be able to convene again before January 19th, which is the day before the inauguration. So it's possible that this could continue after Trump steps down from office. But is there any precedent for this in trying a U.S. president who is now no longer in office?
No, there isn't, because this type of an issue has not shown its ugly face this close to the termination of one presidency and handing over to the new guard ever in our country's history. But the issue is not whether it should be done before his power in office has concluded. The issue is clearly how to prevent him from being a president of our country in the future. And because of that, the inauguration date on the 20th is really not a date that's going to be influential or pivotal in the way certain Democrats are looking at this and a few Republicans are looking at it. It's generally a move and force and effect to prevent President Trump from ever being president again. That's the bottom line.
And the Senate is going to be gaining 2 new Democrats from Georgia next week. But in order to essentially convict President Trump, they will need 2/3 majority in the Senate, which is a really tall order. They're going to need 17 Republicans to break rank, and that's not likely to happen. So that said, I mean, I think you encapsulated everything there. Why did they bother to do this? Just to prevent him from 2024?
Well, a good answer to that is to look at history. You look at the first impeachment and the second, or the first attempt to remove President Trump from office that we just witnessed recently last year. Well, there wasn't a hope or a prayer that he would actually be removed. At that point, the Senate was conclusively in the Republicans' hands, and there was tremendous support for President Trump. But they still moved forward. It's not about removing President Trump. I think all of our listeners and viewers should understand this is playing puppets for the media. This is for those who are up for midterm elections and eventually will be up for election in another 4 years, who are saying, I went after this big bad wolf. It's self-serving for these politicians. And, you know, this is probably the biggest argument for term limits. This is exactly why politicians should be limited, so they're not just playing to their own choir and getting sound bites and video bites for their own election campaigns, which is what's happening here.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm with you on that one. Term limits for everybody. If there's term limits for the president, there should be term limits for those on Capitol Hill. And now for the last 4 years, President Trump has accused the press and even some members of Congress of harassing him, harassing his family, or even libeling him. So when he becomes a private citizen, will he have any recourse, any legal action that he can take?
Maybe he will, but the real question in this is how is he supposed to fight back? I mean, he's been the president of the United States, of our fine union, for the last almost 4 years. And throughout that, we've been distracted by the highlights of his presidency, which were impeachment, false allegations of Russian influence, and false allegations of trying to sway the influence of Ukraine. We know it's all false. We know it's not true. Factually and statistically, it's not true. So the issue is not whether he will have recourse. The question is, what type of recourse will he have? And in this case, as a private citizen, he will have tremendous recourse insofar as a libel suit, slander, etc. But let's not forget, the gatekeepers, when you raise a defense in court, are judges. Judges many times are elected into office or appointed and have to have a little bit of loyalty to those who appointed them. And they are victims and feel the pressure of public opinion. So the gatekeepers will do nothing in this case. They won't do much to stop any onslaught against President Trump. I'd be hard-pressed to believe that there'd be any teeth to any of these allegations that he may face. They've been investigating him for the past 5 years at least.
Right. And last thing, as an aside to this impeachment story, a number of private business entities such as Deutsche Bank have refused now to do business with the Trump family and their business endeavors going forward. Is this a simple case of no shoes, no shirt, no service? Or do you think there's any grounds for cases of discrimination to be brought by Mr. Trump or his family, and even some private individual conservative civilians who say they have been fired or they've had services denied to them because of their political beliefs?
Well, that's a great question. That's a jurisdictional issue. For instance, in California, if you're an employee or you have a business and you're a victim of what I would call the cancel culture, you're a Trump supporter, now you're kicking rocks and you're out there trying to figure out how to put it all together. You don't have much recourse in California because we are an at-will employment state. There are states in the union that are on the other side, contracts. So the biggest issue that's going to help these potential plaintiffs, if they are in fact canceled this way and their ability to put food and water on the table for their families is taken away from them, is a breach of contract. Many of these contracts have already been called into question. We know GoDaddy and a few of the other hosting registrars have just canceled their prior good clients' accounts with no explanation. So you'll see litigation here. It will be based on a breach of contract cause of action, in my opinion.
I have a feeling we're going to see a wave of lawsuits in terms of that coming up in the coming years. Vikas Bajaj, thank you so much for joining us with your legal expertise.
Thank you. It's my pleasure.